In this video, I'm going to show you the EcoFlow Smart Meter, explain what it does and why you might want to buy one. I'll quickly run through how you set it up and then show you two possible ways of mounting it, because if you're not an electrician, then this is probably all going to be new to you. So the first thing that confuses everyone is the name of this, the smart meter. This is not the same device that you would get from your DNO to replace your manual meter. This is not a smart meter that we would know in the UK. This device is a measuring device basically, and you put this CT clamp around your incoming live wire, and then it gives you your energy flow in the Eco app on your phone. So all it is measuring the outgoing electricity when you're exporting to the grid and the incoming electricity when you're using it. And it gives you that data in your EcoFlow app, and that is all it does. So to install this, it does require some electrical knowledge because it doesn't come with a mains wire, and you have to wire up your own flex or get a main supply to the unit. So you've got to understand the basic electrics to do this, and if you don't, then get an electrician to do it. In this case, I've got a flex of some electrical device I threw away, and then I've wired that up to live 1 and neutral. As you can see, I've put ferrules on the end as well. And then, because this is such a low powered device, in the plug here I have put a 3 amp fuse. And then on the other side of the device, you've got your RJ45 port there labelled CT for the CT clamps. So that goes in there, and then these are 3 CT clamps labelled L1, L2, L3. For virtually every installation in the UK will be single phase, so we're only going to use the L1 clamp. While there are some properties with 3 phase in the UK, I doubt very much whether they'll be using the EcoFlow kit. So for the majority of people, you don't use those 2 clamps, you're just going to use this one, and you're going to clamp that around your incoming live feed from the main fuse. And you've got an arrow there showing direction of flow, so this is incoming electricity. So this is going to be pointing to the consumer unit effectively. So you clamp that around your live wire, and then this is going to be measuring the electricity, sending it out onto Wi-Fi via this unit. And this is the Wi-Fi antenna, a little stubby one there, but in the kit you do have another antenna that you can remove that one, install this one, and then this is for areas where you have a very weak Wi-Fi signal. So when it comes to installing this, it's got to go next to your incoming mains. Well, it's got to go within 20 or 30 centimeters of that live cable there. So most of the time this is going to be installed next to your switch in an outside cabinet or next to your consumer unit. This could go in the consumer unit if you've got space, but probably most people wouldn't have. And I would also suggest that most people shouldn't be opening up their consumer unit unless you're qualified. The other option you've got is to use a bit of DIN rail. I robbed this out of a broken Wylex EV charger, so you could mount that DIN rail somewhere and install it that way. So that's a very cheap way, but your incoming flex here is effectively exposed. You can't touch these metal terminals because they are recessed, but obviously you've got to be very careful where you install this. If it's going to be inside a closure, then installing it on a bit of DIN rail like that will be just fine. Another option is to buy an individual enclosure for it, and this is a good option. This is a Wylex NH-ESE2, and this was only £3.49 from Screwfix, and it is just a 2-slot plastic enclosure. It's not waterproof, so it's not suitable for putting this outside, but this is a very cheap solution for mounting this smart meter, and because it's plastic, it's not going to interfere with the Wi-Fi signals too much. Certainly you wouldn't want to be putting this in a metal enclosure because you're not going to get Wi-Fi signal, or you would then have to use this external antenna. So this plastic box does have a mounting rail in the back. It is just molded plastic, so it's nothing special. It's got everything you need to mount this smart meter, and then the only issue I found is the hole there isn't quite big enough for this to stick through. But you do have some knockouts here, so you've got 2 knockouts, so you could knock one out and then that would then sit slightly off center. If that is going to annoy you, then you've only got to file about 0.5 millimeter off each one of those to allow that to stick through, because this smart meter is 36 millimeters and this gap is 35.5. So yeah, you've only really got to get 0.5 to 1 millimeter filed off those for that to stick through just fine. And this enclosure has 2 20 millimeter knockouts, one at the top, one at the bottom. So I bought a pair of glands from Screwfix. These are £1.09, and these are 20 millimeter glands. So that's going to go on there like that. And this end is for a 6 to 12 millimeter round cable. You can get different versions, and you are going to need 2 different versions for this actually. You're also going to need the bigger version. Again, they're the same price for a pair, because while you only need one of these smaller ones for the exit at the bottom for your flex, because the top cable for the CT clamps has a Cat5 cable on the end, we can't get that through the smaller gland. Actually, let's just double check whether we can get that through the smaller gland. Actually, that might be doable. Let me just double check that. I took one look at it and thought we wouldn't be able to get that through. You know what? With a bit of filing, that might go through there. Yeah, it's going to go through that. Oh no, it's going to be a bit tight through the rest of that gland. Oh no, that will go through. So a pair of these smaller ones will do, but you'll just have to drill out this cap a little bit. Not by much. You might just get a knife blade or a round file in there and open that out a little bit. Right, the bigger gland, that goes through easily. So if you don't want to mess about, then buy one bigger gland or a pair of bigger glands and a pair of smaller glands. Otherwise, it's not going to take much to get that through there. A bit of filing or a bit of drilling. By the looks of it, you've just got to open that hole up by 1 mil, maybe 1.2 millimeters, something like that. So I did put this on the bench before I drilled it, but that's now drilled out to 14 millimeters, and the Cat5 cable goes straight through there. So that's a solution if you want to use those smaller glands, which is a better job. If you don't have a drill, then just spend the extra £1.09 on a pair of the glands with the larger cable entry, but still 20 millimeters on the enclosure side. So now I've poked that through there, I might as well put that all the way through. Let's just get the little rubber ring on there first and make sure that is going to go through the rest of it. Okay, it's still not going to fit through there, so you're going to have to just run the drill very carefully through the rest of it. There. So yeah, you definitely do need a 14 millimeter drill to make that work. and this gland isn't going to tighten up enough to tighten around that cable, but it's good enough for this job. And you may want to also thread the Wi-Fi antenna through here as well if you intend to use that. So next we've got to knock out the 20mm holes either end, the entry points, and I find using the ball end of this hammer the best for that sort of thing. So we can put the top cable through. So that's going to be like that, and then the bottom cable isn't going to be that way round. I've got it the wrong way round. It's going to be that way round. Like that. And I've just got to disconnect my wiring. Just about get in there. Like that. And then I'm just going to put this back on. So that's my wire terminated again. And then we can mount that down on the rail. And then you might want to push the clip up like that to make sure it's locked into the bottom of the rail. So there isn't much room there for that Cat 5 cable. It's at a bit of an angle. I'm not particularly happy with that, but anyway, it's doable. I could really do with a bit more height. So that's the enclosure done. Obviously we're going to have to mount this to the wall or back plate next to the consumer unit, wherever you're mounting this. So the next thing you need to do is to open these edges up a little bit, or just remove one of those bank plates. What I'm going to do is get the file out and file a fraction of a millimetre off both of those. So I filed both of those for only about 20 seconds each, and that's now enough. So that's the enclosure done, and we can now go and install that next to the consumer unit, which I'm not going to cover anymore in this video, apart from I'll just explain the brief setup. So you've obviously got to plug it in. You've got to clamp this around your incoming live cable with the arrow pointing towards the normal flow, which is electricity coming in from the grid into your house. And then in the EcoFlow app, you go to plus to add a new device, stand near this, and I found it straight away, added it to the Wi-Fi, and then installed it onto the Wi-Fi. And I found this little stubby aerial to actually be very good. But what it's going to be like in an enclosure, I'm not sure yet. So if you do need to install the external one, then you are going to need to either put a hole in the case to allow this cable to come through, or you could thread it through this top one, because there is quite a lot of capacity in there for that cable and for that connector as well. So I think I'll leave it there. This obviously still needs a little bit of modification. I'm not too happy with the way this is putting pressure on the Cat 5 cable there. It would be better if we had a bit more space in this box, but it works, and that is still doing its job. It's just putting a little bit of tension on the smart meter, sort of twisting it this way. But what you could do is not even put the gland there. The Cat 5 cable could go straight through the 20mm hole in the case, and that will take the pressure off. But for a cheap enclosure for £3.49, that makes quite a good job of it. And that's quite smart once that's done up. So I'll put all the links in the video description below. Hope you found it useful. If you have, please do click the thumbs up. That really does help. If you want to know more about my plug-in solar setup, because this is a new journey for me as well, I'm making any videos on the subject that I think others will find interesting, because all sort of questions I've been asking or researching, I'm sure everyone else is going through that same path when they're looking at plug-in solar for the first time. So have a look at the playlist on the channel, and more videos are coming soon. Okie doke, see you on the next one. If you like the video, please do click the thumbs up button, and leaving a comment also helps too. Plus, of course, subscribe if you're not. If the video saved you time or money, a little support via Ko-fi or the Super Thanks button would mean a lot. There's over 1,300 videos on the channel, so have a browse, use the search, and have a look at the playlists. And here's 2 videos you may want to check out.